Stop what you're doing right now and listen to me. What if the price of fuel at your local pump doubled by next week? What if Europe suddenly started talking openly about sharing nuclear weapons with its neighbors? What if a brutal massacre in a forgotten corner of Africa was just the latest sign that an entire nation is sliding back into all-out civil war? And what if the President of the United States just told the world his military campaign could drag on for weeks or far longer, while the world's most critical oil choke point is now effectively shut down? Friends, this is not fiction. This is today, March 3rd, 2026. 5 stories, all breaking at once, all connected in ways that will touch your wallet, your safety, and your children's future. I'm a news editor with 40 years in this business. I've reported from the fall of the Berlin Wall, the Gulf War oil fires, the Rwandan genocide, 9/11, the Arab Spring, Ukraine, you name it. I've seen panic. I've seen hope. I've seen leaders make history, but I have never seen 5 such different crises colliding on a single Monday morning. So here's my promise to you. Stay with me for the next 25 minutes. No fluff, no spin, just straight facts, real voices, and the context only 40 decades of boots on the ground experience can give you. By the end, you'll know exactly what's happening, why it matters to you, and what might come next. Deal? Let's start with the story that could empty your pocketbook tomorrow. The Strait of Hormuz threat. Picture this: a narrow strip of water just 21 miles wide at its narrowest between Iran and Oman. Every single day, 1/5 of the entire planet's oil, that's 21 million barrels, flows through there. Your morning commute, the plastic in your phone, the food on your table, much of it depends on that tiny waterway. Yesterday, a senior commander in the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps looked straight into the camera and said, quote, "The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Our heroes in the IRGC Navy and the Army will set fire to any ships that wish to pass through this strait." Those are not empty words. Shipping giants Maersk and Hapag have already suspended every single transit. Hundreds of tankers are now anchored, engines off, waiting. Insurance companies have canceled war risk coverage. Oil prices jumped again today, the 3rd straight day of gains. Why now? Because this is retaliation in the widening U.S.-Israel conflict with Iran. Iranian missiles and drones have already hit U.S. bases, Gulf allies, even reportedly damaging the U.S. embassy area in Riyadh. Ships have been attacked. The IRGC is making good on years of threats. Let me ask you something, and think honestly. When was the last time you paid attention to the Strait of Hormuz? Most people don't until the pumps run dry. But in my 40 years, I've covered 3 previous crises there. 1980s tanker war, 2019 tanker attacks, 2022 threats. Every time the world held its breath. This time feels different. Iran isn't just threatening, they're acting, while the U.S. says the big wave of strikes is still coming. Speaking of which, let's go straight to the White House for Trump administration statements. President Donald Trump spoke yesterday from the East Room. He didn't mince words. The military operation, which began with massive U.S. and Israeli strikes that purportedly killed Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was originally projected to last 4 to 5 weeks. But Trump said clearly, "We have the capability to go far longer than that. Whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes." He added that America hasn't even started hitting them hard, and that the hardest hits are yet to come. Words echoed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Capitol Hill. 6 American service members have already died in Iranian retaliation, one attack on U.S. forces in Kuwait. The president has not ruled out ground troops, telling one interviewer he doesn't have the yips about boots on the ground. At the same time, the State Department is telling all American citizens get out of dozens of countries in the region right now. I've covered every U.S. president since Reagan. This is a man who campaigned on no new wars, yet is now leading the most direct U.S. military action against Iran in history. Is it regime change? Trump says the goal is to destroy Iran's nuclear and missile programs once and for all, and protect allies. But he also called it the last best chance for the Iranian people to take back their country. Curious question for you. If this drags into April or May, what happens to gas prices in Chennai, New York, or London? How many more lives, American, Iranian, Israeli, Arab, are we willing to see lost? Keep watching, because the answers are coming. Now, while the Middle East burns, Europe is quietly preparing for a very different kind of future, a nuclear one. Turn with me to France and Europe. Yesterday, in a speech that sent shockwaves through NATO and and beyond, French President Emmanuel Macron stood in front of France's nuclear submarine fleet at the Ile-Longue base in Brittany, right beside the ballistic missile sub Le Téméraire. He made 3 announcements that change everything. First, France is increasing its nuclear warheads. The current stockpile is below 300, the first increase in more than 30 decades. Second, a new nuclear-armed submarine, to be named the Invincible, will launch in 2036. Third, and this is the bombshell, France is offering forward deterrence to 8 European allies: Britain, Germany, Poland, the Netherlands, Belgium, Greece, Sweden, and Denmark. That means joint nuclear exercises, including with France's air-launched nuclear forces, and for the first time ever, temporary deployment of French nuclear-capable fighter jets to Allied soil. Macron's exact words: "We must be feared, and to be feared, we must be powerful." He said the next 50 years will be an era of nuclear weapons, and that Europe can no longer rely solely on the United States. I've sat in nuclear briefings in Paris, Washington, and Moscow. This is the biggest shift in French nuclear doctrine since Charles de Gaulle created the Force de Frappe in the 1960s. Macron is saying out loud what many European leaders have whispered since the war in Ukraine began. If America pulls back, we need our own umbrella. Think about it. Germany, which has no nuclear weapons, could soon host French nuclear-armed planes for exercises. Poland, on the front line with Russia, gets a seat at the table. This isn't an arms race, Macron insists. It's insurance. But here's the question I want you to ponder. In a world where the US is busy in the Middle East, does Europe arming itself with more nukes make the continent safer, or does it raise the stakes for everyone? Stay right there, because the next story is the hopeful flip side. From nuclear tension to nuclear energy cooperation, let's travel to Delhi for the India-Canada breakthrough. Just yesterday, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney stood together at Hyderabad House and signed what both called a landmark deal. Here's what it includes: a 10-year uranium supply agreement worth CAD $2.6 billion. That's about $1.9 billion US. Canada's Cameco will deliver nearly 22 million pounds of uranium concentrate to India's Department of Atomic Energy between 2027 and 2035. That's enough fuel to power dozens of Indian reactors. They also launched formal negotiations for a comprehensive economic partnership agreement, a full free trade deal with a target to finish by 2026, plus cooperation on small modular reactors and advanced nuclear technology. This is huge. India wants 100 gigawatts of nuclear power by 2047 as part of its clean energy push. Canada has some of the world's richest uranium deposits in Saskatchewan. After years of icy relations, you remember the diplomatic row over Khalistan issues, the two countries have reset completely. Modi called it a new chapter of trust and cooperation. Carney said it's about reducing dependence on uncertain global supply chains. In my career, I've covered dozens of energy deals. This one stands out because it happens exactly when the Middle East is threatening to choke off oil. Clean, reliable nuclear power from a stable democratic partner. It's like the world is hedging its bets. Wouldn't it be something if this deal helps India and Canada both cut carbon while the oil markets panic? That's the kind of good news we need right now. But let's not forget the human cost of a world in chaos. Our final story takes us to one of the most forgotten crises on Earth, South Sudan. On Sunday, in the remote Abyem Nam County of Ruweng Administrative Area, insurgents raided a village. When the shooting stopped, at least 169 people lay dead. 90 of them were civilians, women and children among them. Dozens more were combatants. James Monulowak, the information minister for Ruweng, gave the numbers. The United Nations mission in South Sudan says 1,000 terrified people have now crowded into its nearby base seeking protection. South Sudan has been teetering on the edge of full-blown civil war again for months. Ethnic militias, political rivals, cattle raiders, the violence never really stopped after the 2013 to 2018 war that killed hundreds of thousands. I've been to Juba. I've flown over those vast swamps and seen the burned villages. The pain in people's eyes when they say, "We just want peace," stays with you. This latest massacre is not an isolated incident. It's a warning light, flashing red. The question I keep asking myself after 40 years is, why does the world look away when Africa bleeds? Because there is no oil there? Because the victims don't have Twitter accounts? Because the cameras have moved on to the Middle East? Today, I'm putting this story front and center because every life matters. Those 169 souls, mothers, fathers, children, deserved better. The international community must do more than issue statements. So there you have it. 5 stories, one turbulent Monday. The Strait of Hormuz closed. Oil markets nervous. Trump saying the Iran campaign could go weeks or months longer. France expanding its nuclear shield over Europe. India and Canada sealing a $1 billion clean energy future. And 169 innocent people slaughtered in South Sudan while the world watches elsewhere. Are these random events or signs that the post-1945 world order is cracking under pressure? Great power rivalry, energy wars, forgotten conflicts, and nations quietly preparing for the worst. In my 40 years, I've learned one unbreakable rule. The stories that seem separate are almost always connected. Higher oil prices from Hormuz will hurt India and Europe. Europe's nuclear moves are partly because of Middle East instability and questions about America. The South Sudan tragedy reminds us that while leaders play geopolitics, ordinary people pay the price. What can you do? Stay informed. Support humanitarian aid for South Sudan. Pressure your leaders for diplomacy in the Middle East, and celebrate deals like India-Canada that build a cleaner future. And never, ever take peace for granted. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end. That tells me you care about the world your children will inherit. Hit like, share this with someone who needs to know, and subscribe for more no-nonsense international news. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you tomorrow, because tomorrow's news is already being written today.